Recording. Let's get to it. Hey there, it's BoardGameDave. Today we're taking a look at a game called Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion. And I wanted to kind of leave it spread out here as I talk about some of the aspects of this game. This game, for those of you who might not know, is currently ranked number 7 on BoardGameGeek, and its big brother Gloomhaven was ranked number 1 for a very, very long time until it was beat out by Brass Birmingham back there, which is now currently number 1. Gloomhaven is sitting at number 3. But forget the BGG rankings, forget about Brass Birmingham, let's talk about Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, and why I don't think I'll ever play this game again. So I've played it 6 times. I really, truly wanted to like it and immerse myself in the story and in this world of Gloomhaven, and it just did not click for me. Now, 2 quick caveats before I talk about some of the reasons why I didn't like this game. Number 1 is that this is not my typical kind of game. If you saw my whole collection, and I made a video about my whole collection here, they're mostly Euro games in my collection, as well as some family and lighter games, but I'm kind of the quintessential Euro gamer. I love strategy and low probability and not a lot of randomness, and I really enjoy that in my board games. So this kind of like adventure, dungeon crawl, RPG game, you know, was not a contender for one of my favorite games of all time. So I knew that going into it. And my second caveat really quick is that I've only played this game solo. So you might be in the comments right now like, oh my gosh, Dave, you gotta try this with multiplayer. It's so much more fun with 2, 3, 4 players. But I also really don't like co-op games, so I think solo is where this game had the best chance of kind of winning me over. So I think solo is where I would have preferred it. But yeah, 2 quick caveats about this game before we talk about some of my reasons. So why don't I like this game? Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and probably the biggest thing for me, is the randomness, the swinginess of everything that's happening here on the board. So, you know, you've got these monster cards that flip, and that's gonna affect what they do and their range, which you can't predict what they're gonna do. That affects their initiative, so they might go before you were gonna go, even though you had an early initiative over here. You know, there's just everything that happens out here is random. They might turn on one of these elements, and then you can use that, or the other monster might use that, which gives them extra attack, but like, how would you know that's coming? You had no way of mitigating or anticipating that, which again leads to a lot of that randomness. I will give you a quick example of where the randomness really kind of crushed my spirits here and made me realize I don't think this game is for me. So Hatchet's a really cool character, right? And he has this ability where it's called the favorite, where he kind of assigns his hatchet, I guess, to one of these enemies. And it was the stone golem I had kind of assigned my weapon to. And then it basically like really supercharges that attack every time I attack him with a ranged attack or something. So I did that, and then I played this card that would let me kind of double down on that favorite thing. So I think I was gonna do 11 attack, which in this game is like a huge amount of attack. So I had not used this favorite card for 5 games of Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, and I finally, this last play, thought, okay, I'm gonna use it, it's gonna be epic, you know, it's my big special combo ability. So I'm all pumped up, I do my attack, and I have to flip my attack modifier, which could add 1 or double my attack, or, you know, subtract 2, whatever. So here I go, I flip it over, 0. I missed, right? So instead of 11 attack, I did 0 attack and wasted all those turns kind of getting this whole thing set up and putting out my ongoing card. And it was 0 attack, and that just felt so brutally punishing for no reason. And there was no way for me to mitigate that. I didn't have items that would let me flip cards. I didn't have like advantage or anything. I just didn't get to attack. And like, I know that's part of the game. My friend, I think it was Connor, was telling me that, you know, that's realistic. Sometimes you miss, but going from 11 attack to 0 is absolutely absurd. I mean, imagine I flip a card that's a negative 11 attack, right? -2, sure. -1, absolutely. But that was the swinginess factor of that was just absolutely extraordinary. And stuff like that happens all the time. Sometimes the monsters flip something and the golem says every time you attack the golem you take damage. It's like, okay, well, I guess that whole amazing plan I had to run up and melee attack the golem isn't gonna work, which again, I know that's thematic. I know that randomness is sort of fun, and I'll talk about the fact that that is part of what's fun about this game, but you know, from a strategy, from a Euro gamer, that just felt so punishing. So the randomness, I could go on about it. Obviously, there's so much baked into this game, but that's a big part of why I don't like this game. Second, there is just so much fiddliness in this game. Tiny rules that you just have to remember that don't seem intuitive at all. For example, well, this isn't, I guess, not an example, but every time you kill a monster, you're gonna put a coin on that space, which sure, that's fine, except at the end of your turn, you always loot the space that you're on, which you just have to remember. And there's all these modifiers. Some of them at the end of your turn you take away, things like being muddled or immobilized or stunned or strengthened or cursed or blessed or wounded or poisoned, so you have to remember that. And sometimes at the beginning of the turn, you have to resolve one of those things. Every time you attack, you have to do a disadvantage. If you are muddled, if you are attacking a adjacent opponent with a ranged attack, you have to do disadvantage on that. There are traps involved and treasures involved. There's these element things that they introduce where at the end of each round you have to move down the elements and they go up at the end of your turn, which you have to remember. If you do a card that turns on an element, it happens at the end of the turn, so you have to just remember that to the end. Yeah, it's just a lot of that kind of stuff, and you would not believe the amount of time I spent in the rule book the 5th time I played. I hadn't played for about 3 months, and and before I sat down to play, I read through the Learn to Play and got myself caught up. And I kid you not, I would say that half of the time I spent playing that 5th game, I was in the rule book. And I appreciate that there's an alphabetized glossary over here, but this is not nearly as in-depth with some of these concepts as the Learn to Play is, because this is where they introduce it to you as you go through the 5 scenarios. And then this isn't in alphabetical order. You just have to kind of look for, where did they talk about this attack modifier, or where do they talk about monster line of sight? Well, I got to just flip through this and find the scenario where they introduced that concept, because they didn't talk about it enough in the glossary. And it was just a lot of going to this book, going to this rule book, flipping back and forth, going online to find a lot of these questions that I had, and then reading through these forums about some of these vague things that just aren't addressed anywhere. That is so fiddly. Oh, and another example of fiddly rules are these items you're allowed to equip. So before each scenario, you take all your items and you kind of assign them to each character, but there's some caveats. Of course, you can only take 1 head item per character, which makes sense, and 2 hand items, sure. Only 1 foot item, which is kind of odd because I was pretty sure my guy had 2 feet, but okay, whatever. And then the number of trinkets you can take is your current level divided by 2 rounded up, which that is so fiddly. At least it's fiddly and not vague, because the vagueness is probably my 3rd concern. So in this rulebook, obviously it talks about AI, monster, NPC movement. And while it seems straightforward at first, there are so many edge cases and different things that'll pop up that it is not clear how these monsters are going to resolve. So I'm flipping through the glossary, I'm flipping through the Learn to Play, I'm going online to find out how these monsters interact. And I couldn't find it in here because obviously I can't find anything in here, but somewhere in the rule book, somewhere it says, if it's ever super ambiguous, don't worry too much about it. Just try to have fun. That's the most important thing. You don't have to get super bogged down about monster movement, which that's great. And I think that's fine, kind of, but also I am I'm very much a rule stickler, right? I like to play the game according to the rules, and we could win or lose a scenario based on how we interpret monster attacks because it's vague. And in here it says beyond that, if it's vague, we just decide what the monster does, which okay, well, he could move this way and be blocked by this thing, which we know he would be blocked, but he doesn't know that. But then, if we're taking on the AI role, then he would obviously do the smarter move, but we don't have to do the smarter move. So I don't like that. I don't like ambiguity in rules. I like for the rules to tell me what to do, and having those kind of flexible, ambiguous things in the rules, I don't like that. I want to know how the thing is supposed to play, and I don't want to cheat, basically, even if it's inadvertent. 4th, this game is long. Now, it's not terribly long. My average plays are 1 hour and 16 minutes, but this 4th scenario, the 2nd time I played it, was almost 2 hours. Again, largely because I was kind of refreshing myself in the rules and trying to figure out, remember how to play. It's just so long, and it's so random and so long that you can get caught in this kind of spiral of doom in this game where 20 minutes into the scenario, we have been overwhelmed, we're discarding a whole bunch of cards, our health is really low. There is no way that we're gonna win this scenario. There's no way. We haven't even done the 1st objective, much less the 2nd objective and the 3rd objective, and very minor spoiler alert, in the 4th scenario, as you damage these column things that they're building or whatever, more enemies spawn. So even before that happens, we know we're gonna die. And even if we defeated some of those monsters and destroyed this column over here, at that point, more monsters spawn here. So we can know very early on that I keep saying we, well, it's because it's me and this, red guard, but the 2 of us know very early on there's no way we can win the scenario, but we still have to play it through. There is no easy way out. We just have to grind through, take health, or take damage, try to get some health back, run away, rest, come back at it. It's a long game, and it just can get very repetitive, and it kind of drags on, and it can get kind of boring, honestly, because I had to play the scenario 3 times before I won it, and if you lose a scenario, you just have to replay it. You keep your coins, you keep your experience, but beyond that, you just do the same thing again, and that's not terribly fun. And lastly, although this is pretty minor, it is really hard in this game to take back a turn or to fix a mistake that you've made, which I know that a lot of games are like that, but this one I think even more so, because one, there's so much stuff you can miss. So in the last time I played, I was wounded, so I have to remember this condition that I have, which means at the beginning of my turns I take a damage. And I think I was down to 1 health, and I wouldn't have been able to discard a card, I think. So, we do the initiative, and the red guard goes, and he does this thing like this and attacks this guy, and then they attack, and then he comes over and attacks me, but then it's my turn, and I attack him, and I kill him, so we flip one of these cards, or one of these cards, and we flip some of my cards. Basically resolved the whole round, and then I was like, oh wait, I wouldn't have been able to do that because I was wounded. I would have taken a damage. I couldn't mitigate it, which means, oh shoot, wait, then he wouldn't have attacked me. He would have attacked you, and then we wouldn't have flipped that, so we wouldn't have known that was going to come up, and then I wouldn't have done any of this attack. It's so much to take back. And again, I know that that's you can say that about most games, but like in Brass, you make a mistake. Where is it? Brass, you can make a mistake and you could sort of backtrack your way and put the coal back here and remove that, canal. No big deal. There's just so much random output, that you can't take a turn back because you saw so much new stuff. Again, maybe now I'm just in the weeds, so that's a petty complaint, but it's hard because it's so easy to make a mistake because it's so fiddly, and then it's very punishing if you did make a mistake. There's no way to go back and fix that. Oh, and just one more tiny thing, because I haven't played this co-op, but in the co-op game, you are not allowed to openly discuss, I guess, initiative. You can't say specific numerical values. I think this is such a weird, I kind of get it, but it's such a weird rule set where I can be like, hey, I'm gonna do this action really early, I'm really incentivized, I'm feeling like I have a lot of initiative, and then people can be like, oh, no, I've got a 32. It's oh, I'm not gonna be mid-initiative, but I'll be that's kind of weird. I get it, but then just don't let us communicate. But I don't know, that's a weird one that I didn't have to deal with. But then I'm also playing solo thinking okay, should I know what the other character is going to do? Because technically we're not supposed to know each other's initiative levels, but whatever. Anyways, I know this sounds like one big rant, and I don't mean it to, because honestly there's a lot of things that I like about this game. The art and components I think are fine. I like a lot of the art on these components and these the standees and stuff. I like the fact that we're kind of exploring this world and it's telling a story. I like that we're kind of moving our way throughout this map and kind of interacting with different things around the city. I like that we get new items at the end of each scenario. We get to purchase stuff with the coins that we've gathered throughout the game. These are my coins, by the way. I really like that the players' cards get better and better. So at the end of a scenario, if you've completed certain objectives, you get some perks, or you can eventually, as you get to new levels, upgrade these cards for stronger attacks and more nuanced approaches to strategy as you attack these miniatures or standees. So there's a lot of things that I like. Again, the story element, the discovery, the unpredictability, and the suspense, I like all that, but the thing is, in order to have all that, you also have to integrate a lot of randomness, right? It's unpredictable because it's random. There's a lot of suspense because it's random, at least in the combat resolution. So that's the part that I just don't like that much. The story I think is great. I do think, I don't want to flip through here too much. Well, it probably doesn't matter now, but there's some really cool things in here that I'm sure I would really like to explore. But again, if the gameplay is not fun for me, I can't really immerse myself in the story and the world because I'm so distracted by the things about the gameplay that I don't like. So all that to say, it's not a game for me. I think it's a really good game. I think the design is actually pretty strong. From a design perspective, there's a lot of cool things happening. It's really ambitious. I understand why people like Gloomhaven. Don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on the game, but it's not for me. And I think it's okay to kind of be honest with myself and say, Gloomhaven is not for me. So all that being said, what am I gonna do with this game? Well, I'm gonna go ahead and just give it away. So I've never given away a used copy of a game before, so just so you know, yes, I did put a few stickers on this map, which, you know, is not gonna make or break it. I also did use the first page of the character cards like so, but there's many, many more character sheets. So it is a used copy, but it's in very, very good condition. So I'm gonna give this away. I'm gonna go ahead and try an international giveaway for the first time. So I'll reimburse up to $20 worth of shipping to anywhere. So if you'd like to be entered for the giveaway, go ahead and use the word Euro down in the comments, EURO, and I'll pick one of those comments on Saturday, I think, in the morning. I'll put more details down in the description, but yeah, and then I'll send this out to you. So again, it is used, just so you know, but lovingly and with a lot of care and respect, even though, again, this is not a game for me, but I'm glad I gave it a try. It was interesting to try out the whole Gloomhaven universe, so tell me why I'm wrong. You are welcome to give me all kind of criticism and flack in the comments for not liking this game. I know I'm gonna kind of be on some people's sensitive nerves about this game because I get it, it's a very well-loved game, but it's just not for me. So leave a comment down there, say Euro if you want to be entered in the giveaway, and in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful week, take care, and happy gaming. Bye. Okay, now I gotta get up off my knees.